Which model is better, GPT 5.4 or Claude Opus 4.6? I'm going to be answering that question in this video, not by comparing these two models on particular tasks and showing you some goofy flight simulator, but by actually sharing from my personal experience when I'm using these models, in what tasks I'm using each particular model for, and what I believe each model actually excels at. I'm going to be showing you guys the product that I built using these models and talking about what each model excelled at during the build out of this product. The product that I've built is called BridgeSpace, and BridgeSpace is what you're looking at here. BridgeSpace is an agentic development environment where you're able to launch workspaces and swarms of AI agents to be able to help you build and develop products at scale. As you can see here, I can just quickly launch a new BridgeSpace inside of BridgeSpace, which is a workspace where I'm going to be able to manage as many AI agents as I need. So if I need 16 Claude agents, I can quickly launch this workspace, and just like that, I'm able to start launching Claude agents that I will be able to manage and then scale out and build new features with. As you can see here from my cursor usage, I've spent over 100 million tokens already on GPT 5.4 and over 268 million tokens on Claude Opus 4.6. And that's only in cursor. If we actually go over to my Codex usage and my Claude usage right here, you can see that I've spent tons of money via subscriptions here, via Codex, my ChatGPT Pro subscription, and my Claude X Max 20X plan. So I'm going to be sharing my experience with you guys today because it's a question that I get asked so often. And really what I want to do is I want to talk to you guys about when to use each of these models and which one is better. BridgeMind is the home of the vibe coding movement. And if you guys have not already joined the BridgeMind Discord, this is the place to be in 2026. So if you guys have not already joined this vibe coding agentic engineering community, make sure you do so. There's a link in the description as well as in the pinned comment. There's over 6,600 builders. Make sure you join if you haven't already. First thing that I want to cover is, first of all, which plans I'm using and why. So I have the Claude 20X Max plan and I have the ChatGPT Pro plan, which are each $200 per month. And if I go over to my usage here, I do want to highlight my usage and note that I do use cursor in a lot of areas to be able to offset some of my subscriptions. And then I use Codex to be able to offset it as well. So I am a agentic engineering super user, meaning I have all pro subscriptions, all ultra subscriptions, and I'm able to kind of weed out my usage across all of them. But with that being said, it does give me, and you can see my Claude plan just recently reset, but my experience is that with Codex, you will get significant more usage on a Codex $200 plan than a Claude Code $200 plan. With Claude Code 20X, you will get a ton of usage, and I don't run into a whole lot of usage issues unless I'm launching sub-agents or agent teams inside of Claude Code. And I don't run into a bunch of issues with GPT or Codex. But one thing I want to note is that this GPT 5.4 extra high model does use a lot of tokens, and it's very slow. So I have to put it in the new fast mode. So if we go to fast here and I just type in fast, I usually toggle this on, and that actually does use, it goes 2x more of your plan usage. And right now, until like April 4th or something like that, Codex is literally offering 2x the usage. So, you know, they're offering a lot of subsidies right now, and something to note is that I do get more usage out of my OpenAI $200 plan, but when you compare that with like the speed difference where, hey, if you're using GPT 5.4, it is a good model, and GPT 5.4 extra high is a very good model, and in a lot of cases it will outperform Claude Opus 4.6. But the issue is that it's so slow that you have to put it in this fast mode. And then once it's in fast mode, then it uses 2x more usage. So you are using a ton of your plan if you use that. And that's the model that I'm using. I'm using GPT 5.4 extra high, and I'm using fast mode, and I'm using it in the Codex CLI. That, in my opinion, is the best way to get the most usage out of your GPT plan or your OpenAI plan. But if you're comparing the two and you're saying, which one should I get if I only have $200 to spend, I would recommend OpenAI. I would recommend ChatGPT because you're going to get more usage. Now, I will say, if you have more money, I do notice that I mainly am using Claude Opus 4.6. I want to show you guys an example just from yesterday from BridgeSpace of an example that we were experiencing. So the first thing I need to do is I actually need to pull up the BridgeMind Discord, and there is a bug that I need to show you guys. So if you guys have any issues at all with BridgeSpace, there's a unique bug that was happening that I had to fix. It was reported by here, and it was this one here. Do you guys see this? So here there are 5 terminals, and these terminals were using WebGL. And if you guys are familiar with that, this is basically a way to handle the rendering and styling of terminals using like Xterm, right? So you can see that the 5 here are using WebGL. They look really nice, right? But do you see how the 5 terminals over here on the right are styled differently? Why is that? Well, that was the bug that I was dealing with. You can see these were falling back to what's called Canvas, and then these were using WebGL, okay? And that was because you can't launch infinite amounts of WebGL terminals or it will affect performance. But you can see here now that in production, if I expand this real quick, what you guys are going to see is that now I have no issue with this. I can launch as many Claude Code terminals as I want. I can launch as many Codex terminals as I want, and they're all styled correctly. And this is the conversation that I want to show you guys to just explain the workflow that I use with Claude Opus 4.6 and to talk about the key differences between Claude Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.4 in this way. So what you guys are going to see is over here, I basically passed in the initial issue that was happening, right? If we go up, I passed it in and I said, hey, it said it looks like a GPU crash recovery issue, right? So it was a white screen, there were issues, it wasn't styling them correctly, and what I ended up having to do is I had to create a terminal renderer migration. I had to plan out with Claude Opus 4.6 a way to migrate from using WebGL to using Canvas 2D, okay? And there are some differences in performance, and I do think that ultimately BridgeSpace will end up creating custom terminals and moving away from Xterm. But for now, Xterm is just fine, and we had to solve this issue. And look at this. Opus 4.6 was able to totally solve this issue, and it really improved the styling of our terminals. And I even said, make it as fast as possible, improve the performance of our existing system for the terminals with Canvas 2D. So it was not only able to refactor from WebGL to Canvas 2D, but it was also able to then improve the performance where, if you guys can see, if I launch a new workspace here, let's just do a Command T, which launches a new workspace. I can go to BridgeSpace, let's CD into the correct directory, and let's just launch a easy terminal. Let's do 4 sessions and just do Codex, launch 4, and then boom, it launches them all immediately. Look at the performance that we're seeing in production. And this is what Claude Opus 4.6 was able to accomplish. And what I will say is that if we go back over here to this workspace, if you guys notice here, I actually had to do a handoff prompt because there is a limitation of using Claude Opus 4.6. And it's this one right here. A lot of people may not even know about this. So if you go to Claude Opus 4.6, it does have the ability to have up to a 1 million context. If you look at this here, you guys will note that if we just zoom in here so you guys can take a closer look, you will see that the default Claude Opus 4.6 is a 200,000 context window, okay? Do you guys see this? The default. If you want to use that 1 million context window, you're literally you can't use it with your Claude subscription. You have to use it with extra usage, which basically means that you're unable to use it because Claude Opus 4.6 is inherently more expensive than all other models. It's an incredibly expensive model. It's very capable at coding, but it's also very expensive. So that makes it so that pretty much I don't use the 1 million context, even though that it's marketed, oh, this is a $1 million or 1 million in context. It's super expensive and you can't even use it with your subscription. That is not the case with OpenAI, okay? You can literally use it with that 1 million in context window. It literally is 1,050,000, which is an insane amount of context, okay? And you're able to use that out of the box with OpenAI. You have to change a couple things in your config, but you can use that and you can use it with your Codex subscription or your ChatGPT subscription. So that is a very key trade-off to know that if you're using OpenAI, you're able to have access to that 1 million context window without using extra usage. You're able to use it with your subscription, whereas with Claude, it's basically unusable because you can only use it via the API, which is just insane. So I don't use that, but my point here is, and I'm using this as an example, I had to work with another chat, another Claude Code instance, and then I had to write a handoff prompt and then pass it in to then continue working. But I will say Claude Code was able to complete this very well. It was able to get this done. So that's like a very particular comparison where, yes, like in capabilities, Claude Opus 4.6 is in GPT 5.4. They're very like they're both incredibly capable models now. They're both reliable. They're both capable in different ways, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. But one trade-off is that, yeah, if you're using Claude Opus 4.6, you have a much smaller context window, and if you're working on like very difficult long-running tasks, you're gonna have to do like handoff prompts. Whereas with OpenAI, you have that 1 million context window that you can use out of the box. So that's one thing that's very, important that you understand and note is the context window trade-off. The next thing that I want to talk about and show you guys is what GPT 5.4 has actually been able to do for me and why it differs from Claude Opus 4.6 in where I'm actually using it in my workflow. So if you guys look at this right here, this is Bridge Voice. Do you guys see this here? This Bridge Voice widget is Bridge Voice. This is a product that I've built, which is a voice-to-text tool that is included in the BridgeMind Pro plan. So if I just hold my push-to-talk key, hello, this is a quick demonstration of Bridge Voice. So if I do that, right, hello, this is a quick demonstration of Bridge Voice. It's pretty much near immediate transcription. And something to note is that on Mac, it's using Metal and it's using different processing than it would on Windows. So the problem that I had is this product was working very well on Mac, but it wasn't working on Windows. So yesterday, I went over in Cursor on my other computer, on my other monitor, and I gave, I was working with it on my Windows machine, and I gave GPT 5.4 extra high fast this prompt, and I said, hey, this is what I'm seeing. It's not working on Windows. I need you to debug this and identify what's happening and basically be able to fix this, right? And it was able to do so in one shot. And Claude Opus 4.6, I gave it multiple tries at the issue and it wasn't able to solve it. So that's one thing, like from experience, this is what I'm seeing. And what I feel like is the big difference there is that for like very difficult tasks that need tons of context, that need tons of processing power and need to think like really, really hard, GPT models win out. And GPT models sometimes win out when it comes to refactoring, debugging, deep code base analysis, and that's what I experienced. In another example of this, it's kind of a similar issue, and I want to even like just pull up Discord again and show you guys this because it's like a very, very interesting example. So let me pull up Discord here and show this to you guys. So back here, Opus 4.6 was able to solve this WebGL issue, which was great, right? So Opus 4.6 did a great job on this one. And, GPT actually wasn't able to solve this one. It was better in this case to use Claude Opus 4.6 than it would be to use GPT models because Claude models are inherently better at tasks like this related to CSS and styling. So with that being said, let me show you this example. So yesterday I put out an announcement in, look at this. So look at the time here. I sent this out at 11:36 a.m. in the Discord yesterday. Look at this, 11:36. Happy Saturday, everyone. Yesterday we saw a record-breaking 26 pro subscriptions for BridgeMind, and I dropped in the bridgemind.ai link. Thank you for all the support and reporting any bugs that you guys are having as I'm working hard to make BridgeMind a top competitor in the vibe coding space. I'm locking in today and getting Windows stable and shipping some bugs that have been reported. No stream today, but I am grinding and co-working for the next couple hours. So I proceeded to work for the next few hours inside of the co-working channel over here in the BridgeMind Discord with a couple of you guys. And look at this timestamp. Yesterday at 2:56. In under 3 hours, I was able to use GPT 5.4 to completely fix all of the bugs in the Windows version of BridgeSpace and ship out a stable release of BridgeSpace on Windows. Claude Opus 4.6 was not able to do this. GPT 5.4 was able to one-shot. So what I'm seeing is that GPT 5.4 is an incredibly capable model, when it comes to long-running deep code base analysis tasks where you need incredible amounts of compute to be able to do analysis, refactoring, broad-based code base analysis, in-depth reviews, debugging, problems, like that's what I'm using GPT models for. And this is where I was able to use it, right? This is not some like, oh, I did this. And this is like real practice production workflows. This is no joke, okay? This is what I saw GPT able to do. Claude Opus 4.6, I gave it a shot to try and do this. Multiple times it wasn't able to do it. Windows was struggling on BridgeSpace because Opus 4.6 was just not able to do it. But now it's stable on Windows, and that is because of GPT 5.4. Now, with that said, I do want to highlight the fact that Claude and Claude Opus 4.6 are my main daily drivers that I use, and there's a reason for that. When I'm vibe coding and I'm like fixing things and I'm fixing bugs or just like doing things that are very simple, right? Like for example, what you just saw, me being able to grab one of these terminals and drag it up and drop it and just create a new workspace out of that terminal. I built that using Claude Opus 4.6 because it's a fairly simple feature to build that actually it's not simple, but the amount of code or areas of the code base that it touches is not super like, it doesn't need to pull in 30 files to be able to build that feature, right? It should be a quick, simple thing to do. And what I find is that Claude Opus 4.6 is actually more reliable for my simple daily tasks that may be a little bit quicker, that don't need as much context or as much thinking time. Claude Opus 4.6 is pretty much able to one-shot most simple tasks that I have. If I have an error, I'll use Opus because, you know, Opus is able to just quickly understand that error and then quickly be able to diagnose and fix that error. So for example, if I'm using Opus and there's an easy bug, right? I'll give it to Opus instead of Codex because if I give it to Codex, Codex is going to overthink and it's going to think too much and it's more prone to hallucination than Claude models. So it could end up causing issues. But with Claude, it's my main driver for like anything. Like Claude Opus 4.6 is my main driver for all tasks, okay? But when there are, like I said, more complex tasks that are like need deep code base refactors or are significantly complex, I'm using GPT 5.4. With Claude Code, I do find that using agent teams and using sub-agents are helpful. But one thing that I now want to show you guys that I built using Claude Code is Bridge Swarm. So if you guys look at this, Bridge Swarm, parallel multi-agent workflow for autonomous feature delivery. Okay, this is a swarm. This is agent swarming, and I'm going to show you guys this. So if I want to launch a new swarm, I can just cd into whatever project I actually want to launch the swarm in. This one's going to be called API Security. I'm going to, hold up, I entered the wrong thing, but BridgeMind, enter the wrong thing again, sorry. So we're going to enter BridgeMind, and then you give the swarm a mission goal. I need you to do an in-depth code base analysis and identify all areas where there are issues with API security. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter this and I'm going to actually CD directly into the BridgeMind API, and then I'm going to create an agent roster. And with this roster, you're able to launch however many agents that you want. You can launch 3, you can just click add agent, and with each of these agents, you can click in them and open them up. And with each agent, what you can notice here is that, for example, you can set up a coordinator, you can select its role, so either coordinator, builder, scout, reviewer, or custom, or you can select the CLI agent. So for example, we know that Claude Opus 4.6 is more reliable than GPT 5.4. This is known in the benchmarks. It hallucinates less. It's more reliable for simple tasks. So for the coordinator, sometimes it's better to use a model like Claude for the coordinator to be able to coordinate with the agents. Now, you could also add in, for builders, you want those to be Claude agents, right? But let's say I'm building a team of 10 for this, right? Well, I would want my scouts to be Codex agents because Codex agents are able to scout better. They're able to do better reviews. My reviewers, I'm also going to make Codex. My coordinators, I'm going to make Claude Code because Claude is just better at this. And I'm then just going to launch this swarm, okay? So remember, this was built using a mixture of Claude Opus 4.6, but the baseline architecture of this system was built by Claude Opus 4.6. You can see that I have an operator console here, and all of these agents are able to communicate with one another, and I can message message any of these agents at any time. So if I need to send a message to the coordinator, I can do that. There's currently 10 active agents in this swarm, and they're all working on this API security. At any time, I can also actually review the actual terminals where these are running. So you guys can see here, these are the agents that are running. I'm just looking at the terminal view here as they work in this swarm together. But this feature was built using Claude Opus 4.6, and I'm actually going to stop this because I don't want to do that right now. But I just wanted to show you guys that as an example of this is the capability of Claude Opus 4.6. This, if you are a good agentic engineer, this is what you're able to create with things like Claude Opus 4.6, and you're able to build and iterate incredibly quickly. But you cannot do this as well with GPT 5.4. You can't build as quickly. You can't iterate as quickly. So I'll use Claude Opus 4.6 to build out quick MVPs and iterate quickly and build quickly. But then maybe later on, if I need to solve some deep architecture bug or I need to refactor some things, I'll use GPT 5.4 because GPT 5.4 is able to do that in-depth code base analysis, and it's able to sometimes solve these errors that Claude just can't. So this is what I'm seeing. This is what Claude Opus 4.6 has been able to build for me, and GPT 5.4 has been able to build for me. And I'm seeing as these models progress, this is what I will tell you. With over 3 years of experience in the agentic coding, vibe coding space, these models are getting significantly better. I can't even imagine what we're going to have in the next 6 months. But when you're actually comparing Claude Code and Opus 4.6 versus GPT 5.4, you need to be using both, okay? There are literally, it's better to spread, if you have the budget, just buy both max plans. If you don't have the budget, figure out how to, maybe you can get the $100 Opus 4.6 as your daily driver, and then the $20 the ChatGPT plan, because it's not smart anymore to only have one subscription. You need to be having both because it's not one or the other, okay? That's one thing that you need to know. It's not one or the other anymore. There are different areas where these agents are good and excel at different things. And for example, if I only had a Claude Code subscription, like I showed you guys on Discord, I probably wouldn't have a stable release on Windows right now because Claude Opus 4.6 just wasn't good at being able to refactor and find those bugs, whereas GPT 5.4 was. But for example, if I only had GPT 5.4, I don't want my models hallucinating all over the place. And I don't want my models to, for simple tasks be taking way too long to think. But I will say you get more usage out of an OpenAI plan. You're able to, use fast mode now. You're able to, if we just launch Codex real quick so we can just take, hold on, which one is it? And remember, this is BridgeSpace. This is literally what we've built with these models, guys. Like, this is no joke, okay? This is in production. It has over 2,000 users, coming up to over 200 paying subscribers. So if you guys are seeing this, this is one of the best ADEs on the market already, and it's only going to continue to get better with swarms and all of that. But this is what I've built using these models. You can adjust the reasoning level for GPT 5.4. So if you do run into that issue, with GPT 5.4, you can adjust the reasoning so it doesn't think as long, but it just hallucinates. So if you want that max intelligence, you want to use extra high. So I usually am using extra high because I'm like, I just want the smartest model. You can look at these and note that, hey, like 5.4 extra high hallucinates more than high, so sometimes high will be a good model to use, but use it and play around with it, because I use like extra high usually for those deep dives, and it's able to perform incredibly well. And then for Opus 4.6, I'm using Opus 4.6 over here, and then I just make sure that I tab over to use high effort, because you want the maximum amount of intelligence. You want these models thinking in depth. So this is what I see. I'm using Claude Opus 4.6 as my daily driver, and I'm using GPT 5.4 extra high fast to do in-depth code base analysis and fix the issues that Claude Opus 4.6 sometimes just can't. So that's going to wrap up this model review. I hope that this was helpful for you guys in a way that you guys may have not seen anymore, because if you guys watch BridgeMind and you watch our Build in Public series where I'm building an app until I make $1 million, I've already made over $43,000 in revenue, and BridgeSpace is just absolutely taking off right now. This is what I'm seeing. This is an experience. This comes from experience, okay? I'm not trying to make content. I'm trying to help other people really understand how to use these tools, because I truly believe that agentic engineering is the future of software development. Vibe coding is the future of software development. And this is my experience with these two models. You have to have both subscriptions. It's not okay in 2026 to only have one subscription. Figure out where you can be using each model in your workflows and start implementing. Get a tool like BridgeSpace and start building at scale with multiple agents running at the same time. This is what it takes to be successful in 2026 as an agentic engineer. So with that being said, if you guys have not already liked, subscribed, and joined the Discord, make sure you do so. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the future.